Ah, tier lists on early patches. I see. Yes, it's quite early for a video like this, but as long as all kids are sticking to the rules and we just do this for fun primarily, I guess we might take a sneak peek into balancing and possible meta placements even before the big Savage raid tier comes. But please don't consider this as validated by any source other than raw FFLogs RDPS data and my personal experiences in Party Finder, dungeons and from the 3 jobs I got on level 90. However, there are some trends that might help out some of you to make decisions or to favor one over the other, but please remember that each and every job has cleared the most difficult content, which are extreme trials at the moment. So all jobs are meta, and above that, choosing a job placed on the S tier spot won't help you out in getting better queue times, which still is the most difficult boss in Endwalker. Still, I want to make placements more accurate and fair this time, as by your feedback you said that I should utilize the positions and tier rankings more, so I will try my best to not fail you. Starting with tanks, that unfortunately I haven't played in endgame content yet, but the initial experiences I already gathered are nonetheless astonishing. While this chart might indicate a slight lead of Dark Knight and Gunbreaker, I have seen so many players swap over to the Paladin simply from the fact, who may have believed it, Dark Knight is still clunky defensively. Yes, TBN is good, but all the other stuff really falls apart comparing these to the changes and improvements on other jobs. On the other hand, my loyal hardcore raiding friend Macy told me that he as Dark Knight received the dance partner buff at their pools because of how insanely powerful the darkness opener is. So even if Living Dead might still be a living meme and Blood Weapon still is super clunky compared to the other cooldown windows, damage-wise, the Dark Knight is simply overpowering the competition, especially as a content helper or star of your team that wants to sniff the fresh breath of DPS feeling as a tank. In particular, if you had a Dark Knight with you doing extreme trials and knowing his stuff. However, in the case when defensives actually matter, which they might do in Savage raids in 2 weeks, I'm not sure if the Dark Knight can stand against the super strong competition. Especially as the Paladin is insanely powerful, bolstering 8 GCDs of magical ranged attacks, freeing it up from melee downsides but right now falling short on damage. However, in leveling and dungeon stuff, the Paladin is super powerful due to the new passive self-healing and utilizing Holy Sheltron nicely, where the same applies to the Warrior. Slightly low on damage, but offering a shit ton of defensive tools that work much better than they did in Shadowbringers and synergize with your other kit much more flawlessly as the Dark Knight's kit. So we kinda find ourselves in a plus minus and minus plus situation when negatives do affect the positives, and to make a rating, let us hear what someone with actual tank experience and keen knowledge has to say about this.
Anybody that I know that is good at this game will not let the damage of a tank dictate if that's what they're going to play. The only thing that is going to dictate that shit is like prog, but that's a whole other conversation. Which
means we cannot grant Dark Knight a good spot, at least not better spot than Paladin and Warrior that have better defensive traits. So as much as some won't like to hear it, they are all on B rank. Yes, B rank will be the baseline for not better than the competition and not worse, so we have more room to evaluate. Which leaves us with the Gunbreaker. While Xeno doesn't like the overall playstyle of Gunbreaker, and maybe that is exactly what I always felt about it. However, many players favored this job over other tanks, and that for a good reason. It does feel like a DPS, being a tank, which might be the downside for some and the exceptional for the others. Nonetheless, the Heart of Corundum skill might be one of the best mitigation tools in the game right now, and overall the Gunbreaker is just super powerful, offering a much better oh shit button than the Dark Knight, while going edge to edge with its damage output. So Gunbreaker lives up to the test of both worlds, offering strong damage output and defensive tools, so as long as Warrior and Paladin fall behind in damage terms, this is our only A tier tank right now. Healers, on the other hand, seem to favor one job in particular, and who could have known that a job introduced in the expansion might take the lead? Never happened before, right? Still, when looking at the chart, damage and healing, we can see the Sage stomp in both categories, that paired up with shielding and utility might as well be taking it to the S tier spot, being a clear winner over the competition. However, I'm kinda surprised by the White Mage falling behind in healing output, while it's actually very close with the Scholar, and as in Asphodelos this already changed, but here the Astrologian stomps the whole competition with healing output, so placing it on an A spot and White Mage and Scholar on B, where you have to take into account that Scholar, for example, also offers utility, and it's kinda disappointing to see the White Mage fall short on raw numbers, because that basically is all it's got. So even if they may be found on the same tier, Scholar might take a slight lead here. Alright, you're here for the DPS jobs, right? But what looks like an outrageous lead of the melee roster, and what I personally love to see every time, because raw damage is all they offer, yes, some mitigation for themselves or their party, and there are damage boosts as well, but did you ever play melee job in comparison to ranged physical or caster? This is a whole different level of required playstyle expertise, due to the most mechanics happening close to the boss, or positioning being a defining factor where melees can struggle a lot. Still, I would say Reaper is slightly overtuned. Yes, the AoE damage potential might fall short against the competition, but when looking at the median performance instead of the highest possible player, it even crawls ahead of Samurai and Monk. That mentioned, Monk is back, huh? At least this chart implies that, and I'm really glad to see that, especially for all the space it opens up for JoJo memes. So cutting it down here, Monk and Samurai are A tier and Reaper S tier, while Dragoon just not feels too well on my own playstyle, and even though I haven't tested other jobs yet, you need to work so hard for pulling off numbers close to the top melee jobs right now that it feels a bit lackluster. But comparing it to the whole chart, it might still be B tier, which cannot be said for the ninja, that I have seen some good players performing quite nicely, but due to feedback on comments here or from others I have talked about this, ninja seems to be underperforming right now, and potencies need to be adjusted, and as it doesn't offer that progressively scaling edge, plus edge in general, that the Dragoon offers in the form of Battle Litany, I can only hope for a slight buff here, but for now putting it into the C spot. But for not letting ninja feel lonely for too long on that department, the dancer really seems to lack potencies as well, and due to the reduced critical hit values compared to the last tier of Shadowbringers, it will take some time and maybe adjustments to let it crawl back onto the former glory, sharing the spot with ninja. However, not all ranged physicals seem to underperform, and the best bards can actually utilize this support potential as well as damage seen on the chart, and as some bards came admittedly close to my summoner A DPS, so the potential is there, and we have to see how further gear and patches affect this balancing. Especially for the machinist that does fall behind in raw numbers while offering the least amount of party support. So if you're performing badly as machinist, you're not even contributing to other players' damage. However, I've seen some really powerful machinist players and at least leading with a better performance than the dancer. But it's really cool to see that Bard is the strongest ranged physical here, and as you suggested to rate these inside of their role, Bard is A tier, Machinist B, and Dancer C. Alright, last but not least the role which I can grant at least some insight about, starting with the Summoner, that does indeed have seen significant changes, or I would say an actual rework of its playstyle, leading to one of the most flexible jobs when it comes to movement, rivaling directly with the ranged physical DPS role. But this time, which I actually haven't expected, its damage falls behind the competition, which is not a bad thing because I always claimed that bracing potential is invaluable, but due to how enrage mechanics work, it is indeed an argument at least on DPS jobs. Still, it isn't as bad as the numbers indicate. I can easily pull off solid DPS numbers compared to my fellow teammates with my summoner, and the biggest selling point of this job, you can do it whenever you like and easily adjust your rotation where other jobs still follow onto kinda strict openness and rotation patterns. And the more possible targets come into play as well, the stronger the summoner gets, and having a party-wide region, selectable self-healing and 2 stacks of TBN-like shields is a real powerhouse of defensive support. The only reason why I cannot place it anywhere upwards than B is called Red Mage. The Red Mage simply does everything better than the Summoner, except that its healing can only be used actively and not passively. And above that, it has the better mitigation tool for the party, and raising is just purely insane on the Red Mage. Just some days ago I saved a failed trial on second extreme trial boss, the darker one, and we pulled it off to get more progress and learn new mechanics for some players that never did the boss. And of course, as the chart implies, the lead of Black Mage is also not that high, so when taking into account these defensive factors that Black Mage only offers for itself, Red Mage is simply what I can call an S tier job. It can save healers from dying, which can save the whole party from wipes, and can even force healing onto itself to survive the next raid-wide AoE to get out more raises. That paired with better than average DPS output definitely reigns above the competition, especially over the Summoner and Black Mage, as the common Black Mage player might still be outperformed by Red Mages and Summoners. And even on the top end, I really don't know how much adjustments for these fights need to be done to fit into their top parsing Black Mage's battle schemes, especially as the new raid tier seems to require tons of movement, which is a killer against the average Black Mage. Yet, if you can pull it off, the damage is beating a lot of competition and its role mates, so nothing less than A tier is reasonable here. Okay, these are my early assumptions and opinions, so remember the expansion is out only for 3 weeks in total, with a very long queue blocking players off from playing. So as soon as I level up more jobs and we got actual data from the upcoming Savage tier, I will create an up-to-date tier list. And for now and forever, each and every job can and will clear each and every sort of content. Remember that. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep loving Final Fantasy.